Hello YouTube, hope you're having a fantastic Friday. This week we're exploring ReasonML and how to use it with hooks, React hooks. ReasonML is a very powerful typed language that is developed at Facebook and it's used in messenger.com, and it's a very interesting language based on OCaml. The show is 2 hours long, but if you look below in the episode description, you can jump to the parts that perk your interest if you don't want to watch the whole thing. Today's sponsor is Brilliant. They are a service that offers these awesome interactive challenges that teaches you computer science and machine learning and stuff like that. It's a very nice service. Brilliant has been supporters of the show for a very long time, so if you want to give them some love back, use the URL brilliant.org/FFF, because that link tells them you came from here, but it also gives you 20% off if you get their annual subscription. If you're new to the show, this is a long format show where we try to learn new things, or where I try to learn things together with a guest. We record the show live. If you want to catch the next one, you can do so on Monday, 7 a.m. Pacific time. It's the same time every week. This was such a cool show. The person that is showing me ReasonML is Jared from the ReasonML team, who also works at Khan Academy. That's super cool. We talk about mentoring beginners. We talk about why ReasonML, why you should use that, and we talk about Red-Green Refactor and innovation budgets. There's a great question if ReasonML can work with third-party JavaScript libraries. We talk about XState, which is this cool library for visualizing JavaScript's finite state machines. We talk about Smelt and if that has ReasonML support, and we talk a little bit about what Smelt is and where it's coming from. We also talk a little bit about what OCaml is and how it relates to Reason. Talk a little bit about Elixir, how that relates to Erlang, and the importance of familiarity for a language to get adopted by a programming community. Then after all that, we actually get to do some coding. We set up an app, run into some problems with that, of course, as you always do, but we work it out. And then we look at how React components look in ReasonML, and we talk about like how React hooks work, like with useEffect and ReasonML. We talk about how ReasonML works with like return values, how to use JavaScript objects inside of ReasonML. We talk about immutability in ReasonML and how to add type annotations to JavaScript objects and to JSON structures. And then we run out of time. We do get the basics going though. So like it was really fun to actually get a ReasonML app going and like looking at like how it interacts and having a little bit of a look at the power that you get when you actually have a language with a very strong type system. You can find time codes to all of these things that we talked about in the description down below. That's it. Let's jump to the show. Good Monday morning, everyone. Or Monday morning for some. It's morning for Jared, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Pacific time. Over here it's afternoon. I've been having my first day of the week, and this is the last thing I do, and this is the first thing some people do. So we're all in a spectrum. A lot of people joining in as soon as they see you. For you who are new, this is a show format called Failing Together. The first hour of the show, or like you're gonna have like no, where's the camera? Shit. We're gonna just hang out and talk for 45 minutes more, and take audience questions and just blabber on, warming up a little bit, starting off the week. And then in the second part, we are going to be a lot more practical. It's Jared who is an expert at ReasonML, has brought a challenge to me, who isn't an expert on ReasonML, and I'm going to try to perform said challenge in a way where we try to learn something together. And Jared is here to help me along and answer any questions that you might have. And we're gonna just explore this technology together. That's what we're gonna do. Before we get into get back to the more talky part, we can kind of like briefly touch on what we're gonna do in the coding part.
Sure. So the basic idea is we're going to use Reason React and see how far we can get building a very simple podcast viewer.
Oh, cool.
So this podcast viewer will only show a single podcast. We'll hard code that in.
Yeah. Yep, brilliant.
So we'll load some JSON that is the podcast details, and then just render out some audio tags so you can play them and text descriptions, and we'll see how far we get.
Sounds excellent. So that's what we're gonna do in 45 minutes after the break. But for now, we're gonna just chill out a little bit and answer any questions that you might have for me or Jared, or any questions that you have in general, and just like two people to talk about. And then things that you learned last week, or thoughts that you had, or anything like that. So just whatever you want us to talk about, just write it in the chat, and we'll do that. While you're thinking about something to write in said chat, I usually start out with the question of who's Jared? Who are you, and what happened in your life until you ended up in this stream? And yeah, why are you working with ReasonML, and why you are the kind of person that ends up at the Smithsonian, stuff like that.
All right, so who am I? I grew up in the Boston area, and I love New England. I love the culture and the climate and everything.
Oh, for sure.
I actually went to school at BYU in Utah, and I'm still here. So streaming today from Orem, Utah. And I got into programming kind of in high school. My dad was in business, but was working in tech, and showed me some HTML and stuff. And then did a CS degree, which was very interesting and helpful. Not super practical, but I value having the theoretical underpinnings of things.
Yeah.
And I work at Khan Academy.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite make this connection. I knew that you did stuff for Khan Academy, but I didn't know that you worked there.
That's right. Yeah, and they're based in Mountain View, California, but I just work remotely. And I guess how I got into Reason, I did an internship at Facebook right after college, and was on the React Native team. So I talked to Jordan Walk periodically, and he was just getting started with this Reason thing and was excited about it. And so after I left, a year or so later, he contacted me about it and was like, "Hey, here's what's going on. Do you want to be involved?" And kind of off and on, eventually getting more involved in working on the core stuff and speaking at conferences, that kind of thing.
All right, cool. Let's see here a little bit what about this question by Adam Basara? What do you think about development of ES7, ES8, and lack these props in ReasonML? Async versus... Do you understand this question?
I'm going to try and interpret that question. Let's say it means there are some features in the latest versions of JavaScript that are not in reason.
Oh, yeah, that's a reasonable. That's probably what he means.
Yeah, and async await being the one that people talk about most frequently. So in Reason, I actually made a compiler plugin, kind of a plugin that will let you do async await. So if you want to check that out, it's called Let Anything. But it hasn't been rolled into the core syntax yet, and kind of the difficulty there is Reason as a syntax targets both JavaScript and native compilation. And so in the JavaScript context, you want to be able to interact with promises probably. But promises have some weird things about them. And so often, especially if you're trying to do performance sensitive things, you don't want promises, you just want to use callbacks. And you can imagine a syntax like an async await syntax that would work with callbacks, but a little bit different. And then, of course, targeting native, there's a different kind of promise system. So it's difficult to come up with a syntax that will work for all of those use cases and will be accessible to beginners and make sense. So it's kind of it's hard work making a language.
Yeah, I can imagine. Especially async await is one of those language features that has gotten so much popularity very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'm very used to promises, so I can operate very well without it. I use async await sometimes, but it's not like I don't find it to be this super revolutionary language feature that other people find it. But I do recognize that it's because I'm extremely comfortable with in dealing with promises and callbacks and stuff like that. It's you get used to it. Even the most horrible use case when you want to do sequential processing of promises,
right.
I think it's kind of still just reduce them. But yeah, then you have to learn reduce, and I get why that is daunting, and you just wanna hey, yes, let me use async await.
And I think there are kind of areas of web development where async await is much more critical. There are professionals who don't ever need to reach for async await because they're doing a specific kind of website, and they aren't doing a lot of async data processing or whatever. But then there are areas where if you don't have it, it feels really painful.
For sure. All right. Let's see what else questions we have. Did Jared ever end up actually printing the results from his crazy Rust to STL mesh file program that took data from the USGS national map terrain info and generated 3D printable version? What is this?
So Sean is asking a very specific question.
Yes.
I've been tweeting about a project, and it's written in Rust, so it's not super relevant, but it is making 3D printable models of terrain, so like a mountain range or a canyon or whatever. And I just got back home yesterday, so I haven't had time to go down to the local makerspace and try it out. But I'm hoping to do that this week, and I'll post my results.
So what it prints, it takes a map data, and they create a 3D printable map, basically.
Yeah. So there is a national data resource that'll give you elevation data in a specific format, and then I take the elevation data, which is basically a matrix of heights, and then I turn that into triangles. That can be a 3D mesh.
Okay, that's really, really cool. That I feel like that should be like would be like a very good, like you could build a company on that just selling like 3D printed maps to put on the walls.
Right. The where I got the idea was actually an acquaintance of mine has built a company doing that, and I saw it and I was like, ooh, I wonder if I could do that. So
nice. Like who asked what? Like somebody asked what this cookie is. Krasmir. This is just a cinnamon bun. That's pretty much what I always eat on the stream. Let's see if I can get it in focus. No, yeah, there. Okay, it's the face identity of this camera is more interested in my face than pastries. Traditional Swedish fika. Iggy asks, what are your recommendations for teaching, mentoring beginner coders? I've just started volunteering for a local program doing this. I always find this question so tricky because it was so long ago since I was a beginner myself. So I have it's just tricky for myself to put myself in this situation. Jared, do you like interact with any completely new new beginner coders?
I do periodically. I mean, so the thing that I say to people who want to get into programming is have a reason. Like have a thing you want to build for yourself.
Makes a lot of sense.
And then you can figure out what it will take to build it. And it might be that it's 2 years out because there's lots of it's a very complicated project and you need to start small. But I think a thing that that is kind of makes programming education fail a lot is people are just thrown into it being like, you should learn to program, and like it will make you lots of money, I guess. So here is a variable and you should care about that, and then like loops and stuff. So like I've always wanted a program that would turn terrain into a 3D printable mountain range, and so I'm gonna like try and figure out how to get there. Or I want a website that will let me charge my customers for the boondoggles that I make. Like
that is extreme. Like I think that this is an extremely good point, because you can get into programming like go to Code Academy and blah 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 blah, go through the things, and then you get like a kind of decent base, and maybe you get like a book where you like, this is how you build an e-commerce app, and you go through the motions and stuff. But after that, like there is no clear path of knowledge. Like it's
right.
You could like dump the person through a number of employable skills, I suppose, but it's partially I think that is just like random shooting fish in not shooting fish in a barrel, just randomly shooting everywhere.
Right.
But more importantly, I think it's just so demotivating. Like you're not gonna learn programming that way. You're just gonna run out of steam. So I think that is like incredibly good advice to go find something that you care about and something that you want to set into the world, and then just bang yourself against reality until it's there.
Yeah. So Diogo Reggie
welcome to trying to read Twitch aliases.
Right. Said, I've been working with JavaScript development for almost 10 years, but in some way I don't feel confident enough with my skills. Sometimes I feel comfortable, sometimes I feel like I know nothing. Can you recommend any course that can fortify the basis and give more confidence? And somebody suggested doing side projects, and they say, it's a good idea indeed, I made some projects already, but I'm always thinking that I'm doing something wrong. The architecture isn't good enough, something is missing, I don't know how to explain.
Yeah. Kind of like an architecture FOMO.
Right. So, I mean, the first thing I want to say to this is I still run into things where I think I know nothing, like where I'm like, how in the world is this not
For
working,
the
or
love
this
of
is a
God,
mess,
yes.
or I wrote this code 2 weeks ago and now I have no idea what it means. Like, can this be possible? So, I mean, some of this you can just chalk it up to programming is a hot mess, and we're all in this together. But one of the things that that kind of early on in my programming career really helped me to, I think, level up my ability to make good architecture and that kind of thing is being really involved in open source projects. Finding a project that you think is super interesting and ideally isn't, well, there are pros and cons, but I got involved in a project that only had a couple of people working on it, but they were really active. And so I was able to become a core maintainer within 6 months or so of
that's so cool.
contributing to it. And then, making pull requests and having them comment and critique my pull requests, like getting code review is so critical to becoming a better coder. Of course, if you have a job in software development, then and your company has a good culture of code reviews,
you'll get that, but that comes later down the line in your learning journey. And getting into, like, when you do get into your first job, if you're having experience with code review, that is such a massively good thing to do, because most university students and people out of boot camps don't necessarily have that, because it's just not a context where you get that. I've been listening to a friend of mine who is coaching a junior developer on that has just been employed, or like they are actually not a junior developer. It's just that they feel like they are junior in the sense of working in a team. They're coming from a background where it feels like, got the sense that the environment was very individualistic. So when it comes to code reviews and peer review and working with others, they just have a little bit of hard time trusting that other people will be benevolent. And I think it's so great if you can be in a get that going. And I've never thought about open source projects being a venue like that to get going, but that's an incredible point. Dirogi asked a follow-up questions. That's interesting, but it's so hard to find an open source project to contribute. Where can I find open source projects to contribute to? It's something that I've heard quite a bit. So Adric and Dirogi, I think that this is a recurring question. Do you have any insights on that?
There's an initiative in the open source world called I think it's like My First Pull Request is maybe a Twitter handle and a website, or like Good for First PR is a tag that a lot of people use on their projects. Where
I did not know about this. This is fantastic.
Yeah, and so it's open source maintainers that they come across an issue or something that is small enough that they they post it to this website, or they add this tag and they say, I would love for someone to work on this that has never worked on this project before.
Yeah.
And I will give them resources and, be kind of hold their hand a little bit to help them get started.
Clark.io just posted it in chat, I think. Firstpr.me.
Mm-hmm.
VS4VJ asks the obvious punny question: what is a reason to choose ReasonML? Love that.
Yeah. So
I guess that's highly context sensitive.
It really is. It super depends on where you're coming from, right? If you are at a company, it depends on the size of the company. It depends on the company culture, because there are tons of people and tons of situations where I would say don't, right? Like it is not, especially in a business context. I really like the idea of that a company has an innovation budget, and you can spend your innovation budget on using the fanciest language and the fanciest framework, but then you don't have any innovation budget left over to like solve the problem your business is supposed to be solving in a really innovative way, right?
Sure.
So there's a lot to be said for using boring technology so that you can really innovate and really iterate on the core product. Now, what is boring depends on your team. If your team is already, very well versed in functional programming and type safe programming, maybe ReasonML isn't a very big lift, and so it wouldn't use up a bunch of your innovation budget. Anyway, so
it's not a big jump. If it's so it's not a big. If you have to like identify a little bit how big of a jump it is for your team.
Right. So with that disclaimer, I would say the reason I like Reason is I think it strikes a really good balance between familiarity coming from JavaScript on the one hand, and safety and maintainability and stuff like that. So the syntax tries to be really accessible. Also, the language semantics, Reason has mutation if you need it. It's not the default. So the default is safety and maintainability, but there are some, especially when getting started out with Reason, I really appreciated being able to reach for mutability and just kind of imperative style programming, because especially in parts of the program where I was like, I'm sure there's a functional programming way to do this algorithm, but I have no idea what it would be.
Yeah.
Right? Or I just can't get the type checker to work.
Exactly.
And so I'll just kind of write it in the way that I would write JavaScript. And actually, one little hack when starting out with Reason is you can just dump straight JavaScript into your Reason. There's a special way to say this is a JavaScript, string literal, and just dump that
dump JavaScript right into the code. Oh, right, that's nice.
Yeah, and so especially for things where you're like, I don't even know where to start with this, or like, I don't know how to do the types here. I'm just going to write some JavaScript. I know it will probably have bugs, and when I run the program, the crash will be in here. But I'll read it twice, and and then later, once I know Reason better, I can go back and rewrite it in the good way.
Yeah, and there's also like a case for just sometimes when I'm working on something new and learning something new, I try to like get the entire chain working first, so that I get like a cohesive structure, so that I understand how things fit together. Often like in a horribly ugly way that I intend to throw away, and then I like eventually turn to okay, so now it works, but this thing feels ugly. Can I do that nicer? Okay, that's nicer. Can I do this nicer? Okay. Yeah, it's nice now, but is it actually idiomatic to the language?
Right.
No, not quite. This is how we do it. Like and iterating on that. And if a tool just tries to force you to do things the right way from the beginning as the only way, that makes it so hard for me to like actually learn it.
Right. Yeah, Red-Green-refactor is one way to talk about that.
Oh yeah, well, for sure.
Well, actually, no, maybe that's different.
Well, I think that it's different, but it's definitely related. Like it's the same. When I learned about Red-Green-refactor, that really resonated with me because it's the way I think. Like making it ugly, making it ugly, making it break. I get very easily distracted, so it's very nice if I can break it down into this, like have a working thing and then diverge into breaking and then go back into functioning. I really like that.
Yeah, I guess another mantra that's relevant is make it work, make it right, make it fast.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Um, so don't prematurely optimize because that could make things complicated without actually solving any problems.
Yeah.
Just make it work first, and then do it the right way, and then and with a grain of salt because you can definitely follow those steps and end up somewhere terrible. But
For sure. Like like any general rule. It just struck me that perhaps we should explain what Red-Green Refactor is for the people that doesn't know it. Like, do you want to
Yeah.
do the honors?
Sure. So that's it's a way of writing tests, or well, it's a way of writing your code that is focused around tests. So first you write a test that fails, and then you write the code that makes it work, and then so first when the test fails, it's red, and then you write the code that makes it work, and then it's green, and then you refactor it to keep it green. So you make it look better, but the thing that Red-Green Refactor is protecting you from is writing a test that that passes even when your code is wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So first, make sure that the test is failing when the code is wrong, and then you can make it. You can be confident that when it passes, it's because your code is right.
Himarsudin asks, "Is this just TDD?" I would say that it's a principle used by many people doing TDD. Is that fair to say? Not everybody does TDD does Red-Green Refactor, or do they? Is it
Probably.
mandatory? Yeah.
I'm sure. I would guess that anyone who's doing training in TDD also does Red-Green Refactor because it's critical to making sure that your tests work. But you could do test-driven development without doing the red phase and just like, I'm going to write a test and write code, but I'm not going to run the test before I write the code.
Yeah, that's true.
Twitter-driven development. That motivates me a lot, actually. Making things that I can,
Tweet.
show on Twitter, and people validate me and are like, "Wow, that's so cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, I could, I'll do more of that."
For sure, I am a person that is almost completely driven by attention, so I can really relate to this. Let's see. Dacom asks, can Reason work with third-party JS libs too? Specifically wondering about XState. I don't know what XState is, but maybe it doesn't matter.
XState is I think that's the one that David K. Piano made. It's for state machines, which is a computer science theoretical concept where you explicitly talk about all of the states your program can be in and the transitions between the states and which ones are valid.
It's a concept that has surprising amounts of depth. What is the full term of them? State blah 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 state machines.
Oh, finite state machines.
Oh,
FSM.
finite state machines. Yeah. When you Google finite state machines, you just like that's 2 days now. Like you're gonna like go down a rabbit hole of theory.
Right.
It's really interesting how such a simple thing can become this enormously complicated. It has so many implications and interesting discussion.
Yeah, and actually Redux is a kind of at the core of Redux is the idea that you have transitions between state. So your actions are the transitions. Now, XState is a library that makes it more concrete to the point that it can generate a diagram for you of the various transitions.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so definitely worth checking out. You might want to have David on here and run into that. But
that would be cool. It's because state machines I find them interesting because often people often ask me about visual programming tools, And I just say that, like, no. All visual programming tools, they misunderstand why coding exists. Coding doesn't exist for computers. Code exists for humans to describe complex logical flows to themselves and others. Code is the best thing we've found so far to describe these states. If you start drawing boxes and shit, that's gonna be bad. That's worse. That's not meant to describe. It's gonna be just cumbersome. But state machines is actually an exception, because they are actually very nice to describe in a visual way. They can be drawn in a very nice visual way.
Yeah. So to get back to the original question, can Reason work with third-party JavaScript libraries? Yes, that's one of the things that makes Reason a little bit different than, for example, Elm, or actually there's another way to take OCaml and turn it into JavaScript called JS of OCaml. The Reason with BuckleScript allows very tight and fast integration with existing JavaScript libraries. You just use npm, and then you write some type definitions for the functions that you're going to bring in, and then it's good to go. Now, depending on the JavaScript library, it can be easier or more difficult to make type definitions that make sense. Right? There are some JavaScript libraries that are so dynamic and so kind of loose with the types that they accept and the types that they produce, that it can be just really cumbersome to create a well-typed representation. And XState, I'm not actually sure whether, like, because it might fit into the camp of doing a lot of interesting dynamic stuff in order to represent the state. But yeah, theoretically, probably.
Dick, does Facebook make use of ReasonML for any of the new public stuff nowadays?
So Messenger.com has quite a lot of Reason.
What? Didn't know that.
Yeah. So I think it was like a year and a half ago that they announced that over half of the React code on Messenger.com was in ReasonML. So the new Facebook redesign that happened, I don't know how much Reason is there. I know that the Reason team, or well, the people who work on Reason at Facebook are taking a very kind of laid-back approach to advocacy within Facebook. Like if there are teams that want to use Reason, then they'll help them out, but they're not trying to push it on everybody.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, I really like when companies don't try to shove their development tooling down the throat of their developers, because that ends up being no good technology has ever been developed for a captive audience.
Right.
It's best to like build it and then convince people to build it.
Right. Just look at Xcode.
Oh yes. Oh God, that thing. Like it's remarkable. Like it's almost like an art installation. It's like some kind of dark surrealism. Darko says, "I hope they have a good reason. Please don't ban me." Like so much. Like this is a very pun-friendly language.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. So, one question I got at the last conference I spoke at was, is there a difference between Reason and ReasonML? And there's not. It's just that ReasonML is more Googleable.
Okay, let's see. Do we have any more questions? Boom. Don't be afraid, otherwise we'll just talk about whatever. No puns, please. Be reasonable. Oh God.
So a little bit more about the question earlier on about why when Reason might be a good thing to use. Um, another thing that really attracted me to Reason early on was, well, and OCaml, which it's based on, is the ability to write code that can compile to JavaScript, and like fast readable JavaScript, and then also compile to native. So native applications on the desktop, native applications on mobile, and I just think it's really compelling to have just one language that you can use. JavaScript can, you can do React Native on mobile, but there are some really difficult there. You can do JavaScript on desktop with Electron, but then, the minimum size for your app is 120 megabytes. So, yeah.
Yeah, like it's very interesting to have like a language that tooling that doesn't require you to bundle a browser to run it. Your pun game is rusty. Like this chat is so painful today.
That's right.
Now there was this thread. Somebody on the Fun forum posted a talk by Jonathan Blow about how like the fall of civilizations, and he talked about how like people think that technology always evolves, right?
Right. It'll just always get better.
Yeah, except it doesn't though. Like quite a number of examples in history where technology has just gotten lost because like they developed all these interesting things. There was this like interesting material thing that they discovered from some relic in Greece that they obviously had very complicated material science in order to do it, and then something happened, like war, like something, or somebody just lost the thing, and that's super interesting. And the same thing with, I know that it's the same thing with aluminum. It's not part of his talk, but I've read it from Abundance. It's we actually discovered the first process of extracting aluminum and doing it like at several hundred years before it was actually developed. However, there was this emperor that was like, oh, we can't have our enemies having this metal, so he just beheaded the guy. So just to get rid of that metal out of the equation, because this is too powerful.
Wow.
And so sometimes he just gets lost. And he talks about how he thinks that programming is devolving at the moment. That it's not like we are not actually making much progress. We are just abstractions. And the whole thing.
I wonder if he's tried Reason.
Yeah, I don't. Do you think he'd like Reason? I have an inkling that he would dislike Reason. Like,
right.
He would. Yeah. He's. I think like he's a little bit like his arguments. I think that this talk in particular is more nuanced than he used to be. I felt like he was like. But he is right that Twitter has not actually added a feature in a very long time. It is a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, having right now, like the fact that Slack is like running inside of a browser and it is super slow, and generally like it doesn't matter how fast of a computer you have. Like Slack is still not a responsive piece of software.
Yeah. Let's see. We got a couple more questions. A quick one. Atto Maranger says, ReasonML Smelt when? So that's actually a very cool idea, because Reason has really powerful meta-language capabilities. So writing compiler plugins that can do some complicated stuff, which is like Svelte is a compiler that compiles the Svelte language into JavaScript. And I think pairing that with Reason would be super cool. I think it would be much more productive to do a re-implementation from the ground up than to try and do a like compile Reason into the Svelte language because, it's not JavaScript.
Yeah. So, like, for me, who is not familiar with, I've opened like the web page of Svelte and I've heard the Svelte, but for me and anyone in chat, like, what is Svelte?
So Svelte is a really cool project that bills itself as a runtime-less UI library framework. So it looks like you're writing, kind of React or Vue or, like with components to do, kind of one-way data flow and stuff. But then instead of, having at runtime a virtual DOM layer and like doing DOM diffing there, the compiler actually does very detailed data dependency analysis and turns your components into just raw DOM operations. Like if you had handwritten append child, knowing that this piece of data is the only thing that changed, I will just change the text content of this node as opposed to, re-rendering and then doing a diff. And so in order to do that,
cool.
Yeah, it results in some very impressive metrics. I have some misgivings about the long-term maintainability of large projects written in Svelte, but it's a cool project, and so I'm excited to see the development there.
Cool. We have 5 minutes until the break. We can probably, like, if you do your chat, if you dump in a question more, we can probably do one more. Or maybe we already had some question. Can I write a native desktop application using ReasonML with the OCaml runtime and the Qt bindings? Can you, like, a little bit, like, talk about what OCaml is, honestly?
Yeah, it's a good thing to get out of the way.
Yeah, because to me, I'm a little bit fuzzy on it, to be honest. It would be great to hear you talk a little bit about it.
Yeah. So OCaml is the language that you're writing when you're writing Reason.
Oh.
Reason is like, it's a syntax. It's a new syntax on top of OCaml. So if you were to look at OCaml code, it would look very different than Reason code, just because Reason, the goal of Reason when Jordan Walk started it is saying OCaml is super cool and very powerful and very robust and battle tested, but it's very hard for JavaScript developers to get started with it. So let's make a language or a syntax that looks as much like JavaScript as possible, and use npm instead of the different package manager that OCaml uses, and a couple of things. And there's the OCaml to JavaScript compiler that we're using plays better with npm than the previous one that was being developed.
This is genius, actually.
Yeah. It's very similar if you're familiar with Erlang and Elixir. So Elixir is a new syntax for Erlang that has gotten super popular because it was much less foreign to people than the Erlang syntax was.
Yeah, it's Erlang that looks like Ruby.
Right. Yeah, so that's Reason versus OCaml. So if you're writing native Reason for the desktop, you're going to be using OCaml native libraries. You can't use npm libraries, understandably.
Yeah, and I think that this touches on an interesting thing with Jonathan Blow's talk. That he's right that there perhaps there is some wobbliness to software today, and perhaps like not all software projects are as productive as it could be. But he discounts, he doesn't talk about the aggregate of software being built. Like, there's so much more software being built today because so many more people can do software. Very few people were able to. It's insane how like you can do like very specialized things now. Somebody can be a backend developer and be like focused on that little thing, and we also have these specifically marketed languages that are like, hey, there is OCaml, but we also have developed an OCaml that is targeted specifically for people who are familiar with JavaScript and functional programming. And now we can nudge those people over. And of course, the most optimal way would probably be to have the people learn OCaml directly, and then we could get closer to the metal. But there's also the practice of the factor of humans be humans. Like we have to, like people don't want to make too much jumps. Like we have games to play, and we have friends to hang out with, and we want to enjoy life. We don't necessarily want to build software in the most optimal way all the time either.
Yeah. Let's see, a follow-up question. T Software says, I'm pretty sure Elixir adds some features that Erlang doesn't have. Does ReasonML add features that OCaml doesn't? So one thing that makes Reason particularly nice with React is the Reason syntax has JSX built in.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that's very necessary.
If you're trying to write React code in OCaml, it gets cumbersome really fast because you're writing create element all over the place. And I don't know what kind of other fancy transforms Elixir does, but so the question mark colon if statement that OCaml doesn't have, and a couple of other just kind of syntax level shortcuts.
Cool. All right, we are gonna go to break. Gonna have a 7-minute break. Gonna have some coffee. Go to the bathroom, have a bit of air, and then after that we are going to be coding some ReasonML with hooks, making a podcast app, listing one podcast. It's gonna be amazing. So see you in 7 minutes, chat. We are going to be building a podcasting app, an app that lists a podcast from the iTunes directory or something. Like are we gonna use an actual API endpoint, or are we gonna use mock data?
So there is a let me copy in this URL here.
Oh, sweet.
This is an NPR feed that doesn't have cores enabled, so I added this. We're getting around cores here.
Oh, Brent, I'm gonna just do this on 2 lines here so that people with small screens can see them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we gonna increase the font size a little bit here. Zoom font editor, font zoom in. Boom, boom, boom. That's nice. Cool. I also pasted that link in chat. I can perhaps take a look at this link actually. Let's see if I can open it in a browser. And also, it would be good if said browser did not dox me. So I'll do it in a... Here we go. Fresh new browser. La 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 la. And going to this feed. Yeah, we don't have a request header, so I guess that just going immediately to the feed doesn't really help us.
What's that?
If I go, like, if I browse to the feed directly, I just get like that it wants a header. Missing required request header, must specify one of origin requested with. I guess that this is something that the CORS Anywhere service welds on.
That's weird, because I'm just pulling it up in incognito window in Chrome, and it seems to be fine.
What? Funky. Let's see. Let me open a.
We can do our little shared thing here, right?
Let me get this here. New. Perhaps I messed up the when I copied it somewhere. T-software has the same result, but I think that like if you look at the URL I pasted in the chat.
Is this little browser preview in VS Code showing up for you?
Hang on. I need to actually. There we go.
Oh, maybe CORS Anywhere is sad. Huh. Maybe NPR changed something since I tested this like 2 days ago.
That
literally.
would have been brilliant.
Well, so maybe just to make things simpler.
I love that. Like as soon as you use any live data, it just like messes you up.
I will give us a data.json file that just has it.
Oh, that's nice. Improvising.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So the data.json file, perhaps we can. Let's see, format document a little bit. There we go. So I'm inside the data.json. It has version, it has titles, it has feed URLs, icons, etc. etc. So how do we want to
and then in this items list.
Oh, okay. So we're looking at the podcast, and the podcast has episodes, and the episodes are in the item. So title Lance Reddick, which I suppose is the guest here. And there's some content HTML, content text, some attachments, which is the audio URL. All right, cool. All right, so let's build this into a piece of software somehow. So, like, had I been doing like normal React here, I would just do create React app fluff, and it would create magics for me. Is that what we're gonna do, or are we gonna do something else? That is our first step here.
So we could do the create Reason React app. Which, let's see, I think, although that's the recommended way to do it anymore, there's an installation page in the Reason React docs that'll get us started. And
whoops.
Let's see.
See if we can open preview here.
There we go. So this is the way you get started. Now, BuckleScript, again, is the name of the compiler that'll take our Reason code and turn it into JavaScript.
Ah, okay.
And it's also the name of the build tool, kind of the command that you run will be BSB, because that does the building. So you need to install this, and then it'll kind of set up a a skeleton for us with React hooks.
Okay, so we need the BS platform first.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna copy this here, and I'm gonna run this in the terminal. But I need to, let's see. I'm gonna go npm init first here. That we get a yes. And we're gonna do npm I, which we wanna have in the global namespace, bs platform. And this will give us access to the bsb command, which we're gonna do to do the equivalent of create React app.
That's right.
So we're gonna do this thing here, bsb init my create, and then the name of the app, and then a -theme React hooks. What's the theme in this context?
So this is the kind of the different skeletons that it can put together. So the basic theme doesn't have React already included. And before the most recent release of Reason React, we didn't have hooks, and the way that you used it was very different. So, and with this init command, the default is for it to create a new directory called my React app. So we'll want to do -init and then period just for the current directory, and then theme.
Oh, okay. So bsb -init, and then I'll, instead of doing my React app here, I'm gonna do dot, and then -theme, and then React hooks theme. No, sorry, React hooks.
Yeah.
Like this? Does that look good?
Yeah.
Damn.
That looks great.
All right, cool. Oh, that was fast.
Yep.
And then npm install, I suppose.
Well, actually, I think it didn't overwrite your package.json, so we should probably delete the package.json and then run the.
Okay, so we have an ls here. Okay, so should I delete everything here and do this again?
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. Start clean.
All right, let's. How do I? Down node modules, and then rm star. Nah, this is scary. Started industries. Oh yeah, it's like I need to do the armor for C.
That's right.
And then there's no more directories. Okay.
So that's great. And now you can run the bsb command again.
Okay, cool. There we are. bsb -init, and then the blah. Okay.
Perfect.
And now we go npm install and see what happens. Oh, that was a good point. Don't delete data.json.
Right. I'll bring that back.
Yeah, I already did. I happened to have it open, so I could just save.
Perfect.
Like this, the chat is so amazing. It is like it's very helpful to have a ton of people watching you do things.
Right.
Over your shoulder. Trust me, SE2. Looking good today, MPJ. Lighting got much better. It's the sun. It's a lot of sun. Oh.
And the reason this is taking a while is that it's also installing Webpack. So that we can have a Webpack server running and all that.
Yeah. Is Webpack that huge nowadays? Like maybe it always has been.
It's always been huge.
Yeah. Like this is a moment where like Jonathan Blow's ghost appears and like just stabs us.
That's right.
T Software says the weather got nice in Europe overall. I think today is a warm day. This was the first time I really thought like bringing my jacket was a mistake. It has been oscillating like crazy here like during spring, but today is nice. I'm having the windows open here because it's just like I can't deal with it by having them closed. Like Daniel Schiffman has elevator music that he turns on in his stream when waiting for stuff like this. I really need that.
That's right.
It's so good.
Okay, thanks for using Webpack.
Blup, blup, blup. Okay, cool. It's installed.
And now we do npm run Webpack.
Okay. npm run Webpack. Like that?
Mm-hmm. See, Latjor asks, Jared, are you in Sweden? No, I am not. I am in Utah. And actually, I had my flight home from DC yesterday through Michigan was delayed because of all the weather you're having out there.
Running. Cannot resolve source index bs.js in users. Okay, what do we have here?
Let's see. So you want to open your.
I'm gonna close this.
Oh, let's run npm run build first, and then Webpack.
All right. Let me.
Just to kick this off.
I'm just gonna close this browser preview. No. God damn it. Browser preview is sometimes a little bit, don't know, it just jumps up. It's like a little bit, it's nice when it works, but it's a little bit like a cat that just does things and I don't know why it doesn't. All right.
Right.
Let's see. npm run Webpack again. Relaxer TV says cannot resolve slurs. Yeah, that's
right.
I love. Okay, cool. So.
Oh, maybe I gave you the wrong. There's
a lot of green things happening in the terminal.
These docs are weird. If we do run server instead, it'll do the Webpack dev server, which does auto reloading, which I think we probably want.
So Webpack what?
npm run server.
Server. That's all cool. We are failing together.
That's right.
Project is running at localhost 8000. Yeah. Hypothetically, let's see. I'm gonna jump into my browser.
So it opened localhost 8000 for me, which is weird.
Yeah, that's the power of live share.
What?
So you are actually like it's piping my local dev environment to you.
That is so much magic.
Yep. It's so cool. That's it. Like the state of the app is not synced. You have your own state. So component 1, hello, click this text, component 2, and then I can click this button. You click this 1 time, 7 times, 8 times, and then I can toggle the greeting, which turns on and off hello.
That's right. So these are the components that are created for you by default. And we can look in the source directory. Component 1 and component 2 are just 2 different examples of React components to just kind of get you started.
Hang on a minute. I'm going to try to ngrok this. Ngrok HTTP 8000. See if this works.
You're gonna trust Webpack dev server not to have any critical security bugs?
I'm gonna trust my audience not to find them fast enough. Invalid host header. Why is like? Nah, didn't work. Oh well.
That might actually be the security things. If you're not accessing it from localhost, it doesn't let you.
Wuss. Okay, fair enough. It makes sense. All right, so we have a web server and an app and development. It works. What are we gonna do?
We're gonna make a podcast thing. So I went through this exercise on Friday just to see whether it was doable. And the solution I came up with was about 200 lines, so it shouldn't be ridiculous.
Cool.
Let's
see how far we get.
Yeah. So how do you like to do this? I know you want to be doing most of the coding, right?
Yeah, like generally. Otherwise, it just turns out that the guest does all the coding, and I look and I don't understand. Like the idea here is basically just to get a feel for Reason, and as we run into like confusing things, I go like ask questions, and we try to end that confusion, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So with given that we have the data locally, we're not going to be loading it over the network. We don't actually need any state for this app. So that makes things a little bit simpler.
Sure.
Let's just go into component1.re and let's do all of our development there.
Cool. So what are we looking at here? If you're familiar with handle click from React, this mandatorily takes. Oh, hang on, I need to zoom out a little bit here. Edit your font, zoom out. Edit your font, zoom out. No. Zoom out. There we go.
This dot comment is outdated. It hasn't been updated for the new version because there's no self. I'm gonna delete that.
Okay. We didn't see that.
That's right.
Okay, so this is the handle click event, right?
Let's see.
Make
this is also outdated.
I love this. Okay. All right. Message is a named argument which simulates React.js props. Okay. So we have like a component here that gets the prop hello, which desugars to React create element component one make props. Okay.
So the interesting difference here from React in JavaScript is a component is represented by a module.
Okay.
So this file component1.re is the component, and the module needs a make function that takes the props as named arguments and produces some JSX.
All right, cool.
And then we can also put in hooks when and if we need state.
Okay, so what is exactly, like, what is this message here? Does this have a reason significance, or is this... No, this is just a prop name.
That's right. So if, like, the JavaScript version of this would be const component1 equals message div on click equals blah 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 message.
Okay.
And so instead of, because in React.js you take an object and you destructure it or do whatever.
Yeah.
In Reason React you just have arguments like normal.
Okay.
And this tilde in front means this is a named argument. So you have to when you if we were to call this manually, we couldn't just do them without the names. We'd have to do message equals and awesome equals.
Well, I like that.
And of course, here there's a type error because message is supposed to be a string.
Nice.
And
T Software says, like, Clarkeo says, today I learned the sugars. And then T Software goes, sugar sounds unhealthy. They should have called these niceness sweeteners.
that's right.
It's not a sweetened sugar.
0-calorie sweeteners.
Oh yeah, that's like zero cost abstraction, zero cost of Rust, like zero cost sugaring. Okay, I get it.
That's right.
So right, so each component is a file, and we're looking at component here, and we can these are named arguments, and getting rid of that. I get that. What's the next step? What are we gonna do?
So let's do a little bit of. I guess we probably want to get our data first.
Cool. So in React, I would like turn this into create like a function that I would call like component one, and then we'll probably like use a set effect, useEffect here, and do a fetch inside of that.
That's right.
Fetch here, blah blah blah, and then we would set state, use this, set data state here, somewhere along those lines. That's my thinking. What is the equivalent in Reason?
Very very similar. So you've got so React dot useEffect.
Oh, we're still using that. Okay.
Yeah. And can you see the autocomplete that comes up when I type?
No. I think I should, but I don't.
And it could be that my VS Code plugin is not live share friendly.
Ah, possible. Yeah, it's might be. That's a good future feature.
But the given that we're in a strongly typed situation or a well typed situation, if you there are various useEffect with a number afterwards, which is the like how many dependencies does this effect have?
Okay.
So here, since we're just going to be loading it once, it doesn't have any dependencies.
Okay.
And so, we make a function, and the return value is the React effect deregister listener thing.
Yeah.
Right. But we're not going to have any, so we just return none.
So T-Surface says needs Merlin probably. Like, what is Merlin in this context?
So Merlin is what you use if you don't like my extension, which is fine. But so Merlin was developed for OCaml native development, and it can work with the buckle script setup, but it is a little bit more cumbersome to install and a little bit more invasive of your system. So the Reason VS Code extension bundles everything, and you don't need to install OPAM or any of the native OCaml stuff.
Mr. Simon points out that control.space should manually bring up autocomplete suggestions. So if I so if I type it, then it
then you see it. That makes sense.
All right, cool. Right, so back to React useEffect 0 here. So we're not gonna we're returning none here because we need no the destroying of this thing.
Right, right.
We just need a fetch.
Yeah. So, and let's adding these curly braces just lets us do multiple statements inside kind of same as JavaScript functions.
Yeah.
And so currently our effect doesn't do anything. Just the same way as React goes, we'll have our state and the set state with react.useState. And the way that the Reason React version of useState works is a little bit more complicated. It takes a function, I think, that returns initial state, which will be probably none, and then the updater, which is, let's see, and I always forget how this works. Let's see, now it takes a state and maybe an effect. Actually, in Reason React, I always use the reducer because it just is easier to
this is interesting.
Make type check.
This I've never used this. This is really cool. So this is kind of like managing state using a reducer. So you have
that's right.
The first is the old state and the action.
So that's the form, and so instead of set state, we'll have dispatch.
So what is the action in this case?
So because we will only be updating the state, our action can just contain the new state. We can just dispatch the new state and then overwrite. Is the new state.
Okay.
And so this is essentially gives us set state, but with a little bit more type safety. It's kind of complicated and weird why.
All right, cool. T-Software asks, is the last thing automatically returned from the function, or is that only for JSX? No, but
that's right.
Yeah, it is returned the last thing here, at least here on line 25.
That's right. There is no return statement. You can't type return in the middle, which means there's no early return either. It's just whatever's the last thing.
All right, that's cool. That's an interesting design decision, but it's probably also a distraction to start discussing why that is.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So this is a little bit confusing. But let's not get too distracted into why this is. Can we call these something better though, like the set state, and set state, because it's kind of like it's a little bit confusing to know what it is that we're dealing with. What is it? What is the actual name of the state?
That's right. Yeah, this is just podcast data, then set podcast data.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now I'm with you. So how do we make a fetch in this thing? Like, do we just make a fetch, or like, do we have access to that just like we have in JavaScript?
So given that the data.json is just here in the in our tree, we're not actually going to be doing a URL request. I don't think. So I am going to drop in just a raw JavaScript thing that I was talking about earlier. You can just drop in some raw JavaScript.
Yep.
And I'm going to do require data.json. This'll get handled by Webpack when it goes through.
Oh, funky. This is an example of that. Let's just use JavaScript to get the thing before we put it into the type world of Reason.
That's right. And when you're doing something like this, just dropping in raw JavaScript, it's important that you add a type annotation, so that you have safety, because otherwise Reason will just throw up its hands and say this could be anything.
Yeah, exactly. So what is let in this case? This is just a mutable variable, and No,
So
that's because let in you said before that reason is immutable by default. It can handle mutability, but yeah. So here, like in JavaScript, let means mutable, but does it also mean mutable in reason?
In reason, it means immutable. There's no way to make a top level variable that is mutable.
Okay.
Actually, you can have like attributes on an object that are mutable.
Yeah.
But yeah, if like there's no like data equals 5 would be a type error.
Okay.
Or a syntax error probably.
All right.
Yeah. And then, but so here we need to like we could pretend that it's an integer that we get back, and then we would have a runtime type error because we're lying. So again, whenever you're using raw JavaScript, you need to be careful that you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
So I am going to just put in a simple type declaration that says this has a title and it's a string.
Cool. But now, if we look at the JSON, this has a lot more things than this. But
That's right.
Reason won't really care. It will be okay with there being more stuff on the object, just right. As long as it adheres to this thing.
You access them.
Exactly. We're just hiding them. It's just throwing them away, basically.
Oh.
Oh no. Are we having a bad connection again? Yeah. All right. You're back.
Yeah, so you were asking about there's more things, and yeah, Reason just won't let you access them, but it'll be fine that they exist.
Yeah, all right, cool. Yeah, because like I remember Java being really annoying with this. If there was like, if you added things to the JSON, it would just completely crash, which I think is like just type systems making it a lot harder for you to work.
Right.
Okay, cool. So does it mean that I now have like, yeah, cool, I have autocomplete going here? Or wait?
That's right.
Wait. Okay, so also I go data dot title. This sounds fun. It looks funky.
Yeah, so instead of dot, we're going to use the double hashtag to get stuff out of this JSON object.
The double hashtag. Okay, so like that?
That's right.
Whoa! What is this?
So we are using this type is special to JavaScript objects. And generally if you're in Reason and you're doing Reason code, there are different kind of types. But there's a special type that is like, here's a JavaScript object that we're just getting directly from JavaScript.
Okay.
And so to signify that, you use the double hash to get stuff out of it.
Okay.
And now we can do set podcast data with the data. Although actually it wants this to be, because podcast data is an optional, we need to specify, some versus none. And this contains the data.
Wait, I don't get what sum is in this context. Is it sort of like nullable?
Yeah, it's like nullable, where because at the beginning we set the initial state of podcast data to be none, and if you hover over the none on line 20.
Yeah. Okay. Hovering. Okay. I see option unit.
Right. And let's see, when I set the podcast data, it should update that type to be option of something else.
See, I'll open the file again and see if it If I hover none, it still gives me option unit. It's like
on line 20, the none that is the podcast
okay, all right,
data.
sorry, wrong option. Wrong none.
Also, if you hover over podcast data.
All right, cool. I'll hover over podcast data. So Let's just hang on. I can't hover over podcast data because it's complaining over the fact that we don't use that variable yet. So it has, okay, option js.t. Okay, so this is JavaScript type, and then
that's right.
It's this signifies the head brackets signify that this is a JavaScript object that has the title property that is a string.
That's right. And so podcast data is not just an object that has title as a string. It is an optional version of that. Which means later on, when we try to use podcast data, we can't directly do podcast data title because it might not exist.
It's nullable.
And so we'll do a switch on that and handle the case where it's none and handle the case where it's present.
Okay, cool.
And we can just do that right here. Switch on podcast data. There's the none case, which we'll do something with, and the sum. We can just call this podcast data again to keep track.
Oh, that's cool. I think that so this starts showing the power of ReasonML here, where we can do switch based on the types.
That's right, exactly. So here we can say, if we haven't loaded the data yet, we'll show whatever message it was, and now we'll show the title.
Okay, cool.
And now, let's see. So I actually cheated and made a type definition of like all of the podcast things that we're going to use.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We don't really want to type that.
So I'll drop that in here. Actually, I can trim this down a little bit. And so this feed data up top is all of the information from the podcast that we care about.
So what annoys me with this is this little dot here on the line 15. What is that doing there? Like, because all the other things here are super sensible. This is super obvious.
Right.
That this is now an array, and so like the ReasonML is super easy to read. But what is this dot?
So this gets into the way that that the underlying OCaml type system is making sense of the JavaScript object. Because OCaml has an object-oriented side where you can have objects that are extendable, that have more things, and the way to signify that is with two dots.
Mm-hmm.
But the single dot means this is all the things that I'm going to use.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of showing you that there's a lot more going on than you might think.
Okay, cool.
And then down on line 50, I'm just going to use the feed data type definition. And now...
Okay, makes sense.
Now podcast data is an option of feed data instead of just having a title.
Okay. So, hang on, I'm going to change... Hang on. Yeah. It's going to change... If I change this back to the previous type... No, I'm just going to...
Let's see. I think I can do Command Z and it'll
do it. And then I'll have a look at the podcast data again, see what that type is. Yeah, so now it was this. Previously it was this JST thing, and now if you change back to feed data.
Yeah, let's. Yeah.
Yeah, now I can check out. Whoops, sorry. Now I can. Wow, I jumped around too much. Now I check around podcast data here, and now it's an optional feed data.
That's right. And feed data is a JST under the hood, but because it knows that you gave a name to it, it's going to use the name.
Okay. Cool.
And now I think you can take over.
Okay.
And start writing some JSX on line 66 using the podcast data that we have loaded.
All right, cool. So let's jump down here. So we have this div here, and let's just try to get the title out then.
Yeah.
But we already have the title. Is this really necessary now that we have, like, we know the type here?
Yeah. So this is this isn't a type coercion. It's describing it. So one of the things about using a language that has rich types is you can't have a list or like an array of things that are all different types. And like this just doesn't make
it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And so in JSX, under the hood, the children, there needs to be a unified type that represents all of the kinds of things that a child could be.
Yeah.
And that's what this string is. This is actually a type constructor that is saying, I'm putting in a child and it's of type string.
Okay.
So that distinguishes it from adding a node or whatever.
I see. So this is kind of like a string node here. Okay, I think I get it ostensibly.
Yeah, because if you just put in a normal string, it'll say this isn't a component, or this isn't like a React element.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So then we go. Let's say that we try to render something else out here. We'll start by not having that descriptor, and I'm gonna do
let's see. Description is another thing you can get off of there.
Like this.
And I think this is my my extension not being helpful.
All right, cool. Well, it's all like this is not like we're not interested in that. We're interested in ReasonML.
Right.
So now we're getting this type error because this expression has type string, but the expression was of type React element. Yeah, because we cannot just dump a string right into the DOM without explicitly stating that this is type that we want. So this is a case where we either we could do like render this out as a string and that would work. By the way, I'm gonna just go to the browser and see where we are.
What we've rendered so far?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it renders. We have NPR's weekly current events quiz. Wait.
That's right.
Yep. And
and to clean things up, I'm gonna remove the component 2 that gets rendered, and there's like some other stuff in index.html. Okay, so now it's just our component that's getting rendered there.
All right, cool. Yeah, now it's a lot less messy. Okay, cool. So what else do we have in this thing? We have, what would be a nice thing to do? Render out the icon of the thing, perhaps? You think?
Yeah, let's do that.
What do you think about that? Does it work?
That sounds great.
So I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna render it out as a string first.
Yeah.
Because I know how to do that. So data dot what the hell was it? Icon.
Yeah.
Icon. Cool. Nice. Now we have that URL. And in React, I would just do like an image here and then do source.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would flirp that in. See
Sounds
what that
good.
happens. Cool. That not an ideal size. What is the size of this thing? Is it actually this big?
It says
it's actually 1,000 times. That's not. NPR does not optimize their stuff.
That's right.
Wow. Okay, let's just style it down to like width 100 pixels or something.
Right. And so here's
now I'm this is gonna compile. This is help.
Yeah. So here's another place where Reason React adds some more type safety.
Yeah.
Because in normal React you could misspell this. You could put in a florp. So instead, to make style, you do let's see, the React DOM dot style dot make, and this will you pass in the things as named arguments instead.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. What is the second argument here?
So that's the unit. That's kind of like null, or undefined. Like there's nothing here, and what it means is I'm done.
Okay.
Because the make function can take up there are like 200 arguments you could be passing in. And with Reason and OCaml, there's something called partial application, where if you have add takes an x and a y and returns x plus y, you can do let add 2. You just call it with the first function, and then you get the it returns a function that is waiting for the second argument.
T-Software asked a question while you were typing, so I'm not sure if it I actually referring to the right line anymore, but can I somehow make a shortcut for this style function, like import it with another shorter name?
Totally. You could say let style equals React DOM dot style dot make, and then we could change this to be style.
Oh, sorry.
And it's all good.
Cool.
And now we have the image rendered. So
all right, let's see.
So next step would be let's render out each of the episodes from the items.
Yes. However, we are out of time.
Perfect.
Yes. But we got we got it working. Like we got some I learned the basics of Reason, trying getting running into weird things like this, which is a little bit hard to wrap your head around until you know why it's required.
Mm-hmm.
We also got to see a little bit of a hinting, because it's a little bit tricky to see the power of strong tooling systems and strong type systems like Reason in small examples like this. But I still think that we got to see a little bit of its power with the switch here,
right?
Because this is where Reason starts to shine. Once you have I often feel like type systems tend to not give enough power from like the hoops that it makes you jump through, because what we see here on line 65 and 68, that's definitely hoops.
Right.
But once you start seeing like these, your ability to go and do this very, very terse selectors on things, it really shows the power of types. Because I really feel like ReasonML is one of the type systems that I feel like this actually has some promise in giving me back my invested time.
Yeah. And before we sign off, we should definitely take a look at the generated JavaScript.
Oh, yeah.
So component1.bs.js.
Yeah.
That's, especially when you're starting out with Reason and Reason React, taking a look at what comes out on the other side can be super informative.
Oh, sorry, I opened the wrong one. This one. Component1.bs.js.
Yeah. So we have the component. It's not formatted super well. Let's see if Prettier can do something for that. But we're calling useEffect. We're doing the React.create element that you would do if you weren't using JSX in JavaScript.
Yeah.
So also good to look at.
Yeah, it's pretty nice to understand what is going on, that it doesn't compile it to complete garble. That it's just like I can still see sort of what is happening here. It's nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what we had for you today. It's so nice that everyone could join, and I hope you enjoyed getting like our feet wet into how Reason interacts with React. I hope that everyone has a fantastic week, and make sure that you follow Jared at Jared Forsyth on Twitter. There are also some links in the Twitter and in the Twitch box for more reading about ReasonML that you can check out. So you should do that. And any other final words, Jared? Anything that you want to say to the audience before we head off? Any encouragements? I think we lost Jared. Thank you, Skype. Anything I want to say to Skype? I want to say...
Sorry,
right.
I guess my final word is...
Yeah, like...
Yeah, so for people that want to get started with Reason React, I wrote a very long tutorial that assumes no Reason experience. It just assumes that you are coming from JavaScript and React. It's in the links, and I hope it helps.
Oh, perfect. Go there. Without further ado, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great week, and thanks for watching. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, brilliant.org/FFF, if you're looking to brush up on some computer science or machine learning. Using that link gives you 20% off their annual subscription. We record these shows live on Mondays. If you want to see what time that is in your time zone, go to twitch.tv/funfunfunction. If you want to see more about what FunFunFunction is about, you can check out this playlist, or if you just really like this, you can click here to subscribe. I am MPJ. Until next Monday morning, stay curious.